Metallica only showed real promise after they were joined by two talented musicians, guitarist Dave Mustaine and bassist Cliff Burton.
Dave Mustaine was crucial to the history of Metallica because he had this fiery attitude, very much like the attitude of the hardcore punks in Los Angeles at the time. And also he was an incredible musician. Some of the musicians in Slayer, I was talking to them the other day, and they told me that they used to go to these early Metallica shows to watch Dave Mustaine play his lead guitar. He used to be able to play these solos without actually looking at the instrument, which really impressed them.
They were really drunk, you know, doing those shows, but you could hear the improvement when Cliff had joined, just with the amazing technique he had on the bass. You know, they just only played a couple of gigs together with Cliff and Dave in the band at the same time.
It was pretty much off the hook. I remember watching this band, and it was like, it was pretty amazing, actually. It was pretty raw, but it was a trip because you had Dave Mustaine and James, and like they both kind of like were frontmen. Like one, you know, like for one song, James would announce that song or whatever, and then for another song, you know, Dave would, you know, talk.
All right, Foxers! How many of you have a middle finger? This is a classic I'm sure you've all heard.
And you kind of saw that kind of separation there, you know, but it kind of worked. And James was like off the hook. He reminded me of like Reagan from the Exorcist. He was just like, wow, you know, just real crazy. But it was something really cool, you know, and I knew they were going to do something from that first show.
They'd seen Cliff play in a band called Trauma, who were based here in the Bay Area.
Cliff was a very nice guy. I'd met him when he was in a band called Trauma before that. And I knew somebody, a friend of mine knew the guitar player from Trauma, so we would go see them and stuff, and Cliff was amazing. He's just, you looked at him, like everybody else in the band. I mean, they were good at what they did, I guess, but they weren't, you know, moving like he did, and it's just, he was the focal point of that whole band.
Everybody said, this band is pretty good, but you gotta see this bass player. And, you know, everybody's just talking about this bass player. It's just unbelievable. So naturally, you know, it was a must to see. All of a sudden, he was in Metallica.
Trauma came and played a show down in LA where the guys in Metallica were based at the time. And they were really blown away by how great Cliff was, and they got a hold of Cliff and like, dude, we want you to join our band, because they weren't happy with Ron. And Cliff said, well, I'd be in to join you guys, but I ain't gonna move to LA, so you're gonna have to come up here if you want me to join your band.
Los Angeles at the time was preoccupied with what we'd now call hair metal, with Motley Crue and Rat and Warrant.
Los Angeles is the city you think of when you think of heavy metal.
This very sort of soft, plasticky, sing-along kind of rubbish.
All this poser hairspray bands, they hated them. It's like, what is this?
And then in San Francisco, you had all these thrash metal nutters who had developed a taste for much more aggressive music that was much faster, much heavier than anything you'd get in Los Angeles.
So they kicked Ron out of the band and moved up here to San Francisco, where they'd already gigged a few times and were very successful and really built a following up here, and they loved it here anyway, so it was just a natural for them to move here, and that's how they got together with Cliff.
San Francisco shows were just off the hook. Crazy drunken bashes. Well, it's kind of funny. The first time I took pictures of them, there was no camera policy, and I ended up getting my film taken away by the security. They tried to expose the film, and I ended up getting it back. Luckily, I rewound it back into the camera, and that ended up being the shot that Cliff used on the album, which is ironic, so it almost didn't exist. Back then, you were allowed to take pictures of all the concerts. You didn't have to have a photo pass, you know. It wasn't big business like it is now, you know. First 3 songs and all that baloney.